Shane Bond, 120 matches for his country. That's all. But 80-something test wickets at 22.09. Man, the man left quite an impression. Joins us again. Welcome back, mate.
My pleasure, mate. Good to speak to you, as always.
Yeah, the World Cup. Okay, let's just get the first bit out of the way, which is congratulations, Aussie. God damn it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they do, don't they? They get to finals and they tend to win. So, yeah, I enjoyed the final. I thought, they were brave in what they did. They were very well planned and organised. Probably a shout out to Dan Vittoria, who's in charge of their bowlers. Obviously did a great job with the team. So, in the end, you'd say India were, consistently the best team. But, at the end of the day, only the best team has to win the final, and they didn't do that. So, the Aussie deserve a chance.
Yeah, you must have one eye on their pace bowlers. I look at Hazelwood, Stark and Cummins. You know what impresses me the most? It's their longevity, the fact that they play so much cricket. These guys very rarely get injured. They front up time after time after time, don't they?
They do, and I suppose you build success on that continuity. And I think you look at New Zealand's success over probably you'd say now the last 8 to 10 years, and that's been built on Bolt, Southey, Wagner, those sorts of players who, again, haven't been injured very much. That not only that performance, but that durability side, and not only just across test matches, but across all formats. So, the Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins trio is one of the great trios of bowling, really, and the fact that also Pat's leading the team as well now and done a brilliant job. You have to say that those three are going to be at the end of their career seen as legends of the game.
Rodney, what is it? I mean, you had so much trouble with your back as well, and so did Dan Vittoria as well, and it just takes such a toll as a job, as an occupation and a career. But these guys and the guys that you've just mentioned for New Zealand have seemed to overcome that. What is it down to?
Oh, look, obviously fitness is one. You sort of forget that, Pat Cummins had five or 6 years missing from the Australian team, selected at 18 and injured early and missed 5 years playing because of back problems. And you sort of forget that is because he's been playing consistently for the last 4 to 5 years. So, look, sometimes it's just a bit of bad luck. You have to be in peak physical condition. So there's no doubt the bowlers of both, Australia and New Zealand are that. The likes of Bumrah for India, who's gone through, back surgery, but he's in peak condition. So injuries are part and parcel. You're going to get them as a bowler. So you need a little bit of luck, but it's that consistency of routine of the work that you do off the field, management. It's the combination of everything that'll keep you on the park.
How do you assess the performance of our bowlers at the One Day World Cup?
They probably weren't as consistent as what they would have liked to be. I think, we've got obviously bowlers who can move the ball around. The conditions didn't really suit that much, didn't move around a lot. So, look, I thought we were pretty good in catches. Probably the games that we really needed to step up, we probably didn't do it as well as what we could. And probably the semi-final was the most disappointing performance, I think. Not only we just didn't adapt to the conditions. The difference between us and Australia, Australia had different field sets. They chopped and changed their bowlers. They had a really clear game plan about how they thought they were going to win it. I didn't really see that from us, that real clear game plan or throwing something different at a team that they'd already played in conditions that they should have known.
And I especially looked at Trent Boult and so much expected and so much demanded of him. And he didn't look like the guy that we've seen play for New Zealand so often. What do you put that down to? Can we just point to the fact that, hey, he's playing a lot of T20 cricket now and I don't know whether the standard is up to it, or just did not the conditions suit him exactly as he would have wanted?
Yeah, I didn't think he bowled poorly. That's the one difference. Is that, you look across all the bowlers, the Starks, even the Cummins, the Shaheen, Sharafridis, a lot of those opening bowlers and really express pace bowlers didn't have a lot of luck or take a lot of wickets at the front end in the tournament just because the conditions were batting friendly and the ball didn't swing a lot. So I certainly didn't think Trent bowled poorly. It's just sometimes have to find a different way to sort of skin the cat, and I sort of go back to that final. Australia had deep point out. They took the pace off earlier. They chopped and changed their bowlers. And that's the sort of thing that perhaps we didn't do during the tournament. We didn't try anything different. We didn't offer up sort of a different set of game plans. So, look, I thought Trent was not too bad. Matt Henry was a loss for New Zealand, him getting injured. Ferguson was inconsistent. We didn't see the best of him. And then, of course, you had Mitch Santner, who was brilliant through the tournament. So, look, we had our chances, even in that semi-final. I thought if New Zealand could have kept India to 350, and our batting was our real strength during the tournament, we would have had a chance to win that semi-final.
Would you have thrown Jamison there in the semi-final as something different, but a different height, bit of a different angle?
Oh, look, it's a big call to do that. I mean, obviously, Tim's got the experience, and also his leadership on the field. Hindsight, I don't think you'd ever do that with a guy in his first game in the tournament, and I didn't think New Zealand would ever do that, or probably most teams wouldn't do that anyway. Instead, I think New Zealand will just be disappointed with the way they bowled in the semi-final. They just weren't as good as what they needed to be, and if you're not that good against a team like India, then you get crunched. That's exactly what happened.
Shane Bond is with us on the platform. One of the things I want your expert eye to look at is just the subtleties and the difference now in terms of the formats. Test cricket bowling's different, obviously, but in terms of the white ball, bowling in a 50-over match and bowling in the T20s, there is a hell of a lot of subtleties, isn't there?
Yeah, it's getting more similar. I think the one challenge of T20 cricket and one-day cricket in particular is the four fielders outside the circle. It's bloody hard work, and it certainly had an impact on the runs. The scores in one-day cricket now, teams get 350, 380, and are nearly getting chased down because it's very difficult to stop batsmen on good batting services. So there's a lot of talk about, does that make the cricket more interesting? I'm not too sure. I still find those sort of 260s when there's something in the wicket are far more interesting games.
Same.
So I think that's where Australia almost adopted sort of T20 philosophies at the start of the final. The deep point was out. They bowled a different bowler every over, which you often do in T20 if teams. So they made that adjustment in the biggest game and were brave enough to do it. And I think that was the difference in why they won that game comparatively to every other team really struggling against the Indian batting line.
The other thing that I really noticed was, especially in that final, is the pressure applied with their fielding. And initially in the first 5, 6, maybe 8 overs where Sharma goes berserk, to turn or to stop threes, make them ones, to stop boundaries, only twos. And they did it consistently, didn't they? I think there was one got through under Warner's body, and that was the only one in the first few overs. And it really reminded me of a tight baseball team. And I know that how much you love your baseball, and that of just absolutely strangling anything that you get a hit. And it just starts playing on the batsmen's minds and the batters' minds in baseball that, God, that was good contact with the bat, but it went nowhere.
Yeah, I think they're the two coach killers when it's the run-outs and the drop catches, the stuff that, you do all the work and talk about, but, and all the players train. But if you make those mistakes in World Cups, and you've seen through the World Cup, Afghanistan versus Australia was the classic, absolute Google drops. Yeah. And the result of the game turned on that one drop catch. And, Travis Head's catch of Rout Sharma was
brilliant,
a defining moment in the final. So if you can take your catches and don't give any stupid run-outs, you go a long way to making life tough to beat, or you'll become tough to beat as a team. So that's the difference. Australia have always been renowned as a good fielding team. New Zealand always renowned as a good fielding team. And, they had their moments, New Zealand, where they dropped catches and it really cost them. And in the end, Australia started poorly. I think Marsh dropped Kohli in the first game and it cost them a game. But at the back end of the tournament, when it mattered, they got it right. And again, that was a huge part of why they won that match.
What is it about them? They have won 6 out of the last 9. They've won 5 away from home. And again, they turn up when it matters most. They lose the first 2 games. But didn't you get a sense of inevitability once they got to the semi-finals? Good God, they're the last team any other team wants to play?
Yeah, I think they just have that undying belief in themselves. I suppose that's built on history a little bit, that they've had so much success. And that success has sort of been ingrained, that it's just expected that you go and play your best cricket. But, Australia through the whole tournament weren't consistently great. They had issues with their middle order. Their bowling was a little bit erratic, a little bit like New Zealand's. But what you've got to do is find a way to get to that last 4, and then it's like a new competition, and that's when they play their best cricket. So New Zealand weren't quite good enough to do that. India and England weren't quite good enough to do it, but that's what makes a great team in Australia is, they are well planned, they're well organised, they feel well, and they did the basics well. They do the basics well in big games, and when you do that, you become very hard to beat.
Shane, do you fear now for the future of one-day cricket? Racking my brains, and we've had a lot of talk about this, about, where does it sit in the calendar? Because every 4 years that tournament is great, but where do you put 50-over cricket in between T20s and Tests and actually make it relevant from here through to the next World Cup?
Oh, it's a great question, buddy. I spent, 12 days in India doing a little bit of ESPN cricket info work and watch every game for 12 days. They were bloody long days.
Yep.
To be fair, and most of those games were really one-sided. they're talking about, knocking it down to 40 overs. I still think that, then the stats become, you can't compare. It's still a great game, but people just don't have the time to watch it. And the tournament's incredibly long. When you compare it with the T20 World Cup, it's all over in 3 weeks.
Right.
And the games are all super competitive and lots of close games. So for me, I wouldn't play one-day cricket as much. I play T20 cricket. I think you can shorten tours. You can play a 7-game series in the back of 10 days. Spread across the country. You can play back-to-back games over the weekend, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. I think if you're going to play one-day cricket, you've almost got to go back to the old tri-series or quad series where, if you're New Zealand, you get India, England, and Australia here and play a little tournament. And perhaps it would make it a little bit more interesting, because I think the bilateral series are, they're pretty boring. There's no context really outside of qualifications for World Cup. So, for me, it would be just test matches and T20 cricket, and I'd sort of park the one-day cricket for a while.
Would that be international T20s? Or, Simon Doull's always been a great believer in that. Just make it franchise cricket. Play it at World Cups, but just make it T20 franchise.
No, I definitely have. I still think you need to have international players playing international T20s. I mean, even to try and get your players into those franchise leagues, they need to be playing that format. And I think people will still go and watch it, particularly because it's 3 hours. I would love to see a New Zealand team or 2 teams in the Big Bash.
Yeah, right.
All the other Australian team, other sports in that competition. And I think, often in January you'll get a bilateral, one-day series played. But for me, I'd much rather go and watch the South Island Kings versus the Melbourne Stars at Hadley. That would be very exciting, especially if you've got Kiwi players playing across both teams. So I'm hopeful that something like that would happen and we'd get involved in that competition, because I think over sort of December, January, if you had a couple of teams playing in the Big Bash, it would be bloody exciting.
No, give us all a good reason to watch. Anyway, what are you up to these days, mate?
Mate, just doing the usual franchise coaching. Going back to the IPL again, which will be my 10th season coming up. So, I'm pretty lucky to be doing that. So, jetting around the world, mate, in little patches and coaching and being involved in different teams. So, I'm really lucky, and it's cool to still be involved in the game and sort of seeing how it all evolves and plays out. There's a lot going on, but it's cool to be part of.
How old are the kids these days? And we're going to get another one of you. We're going to get another young Bond coming through, mate, bowling at 180s.
Yeah, my daughter's at 19 too. My son's 15, and he's a handy little cricketer. So he wants to make a living as a cricket player. So I'm working pretty hard with him. So we'll see how he goes. It's not easy to make it.
Always good to catch up with you, mate.
Cheers, Marty.